What is up YouTube? It's Horror Master and I'm back with yet another video, but this time a bit more of a horror themed video, which I'm about to do my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. So a little bit story with me in horror. I got into horror when I was around maybe 6, 7 years old, around the same time that I got into metal. So the story is that I went to my uncle's house in Houston, and of course, he had VHS of a whole bunch of movies, and I was going through the VHS, and one of the movies that popped out was Child's Play, the first part, and I was like, this is interesting. So I put on the movie on the VHS. Remember, kids, when VHS were a thing, because I do, but I put on the movie, and I was immediately in love with Chuck. And Chuck is one of my favorite slashers of all time, next to somebody like Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, so on and so forth. So from that moving forward, I began getting into more horror stuff. Of course, like I said, the usual names like the Halloween and the Nightmare on Elm Street and the Friday the 13th. And as time went on, I began to get more into more psychological horrors, because I think psychological horrors are um, a different breed of horror that a lot of people don't give it the respect it deserves. And we start branching out to even like scary horror, like the scary movies and all that, which I find it funny. And I said it's in the horror genre, but it gets complicated. But yeah, these are gonna be my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. But before that, I do have some honorable mentions I do want to mention. First of all, and the majority of them I have them on DVD, and if not, the movies I don't have, I'll probably add up pictures somewhere in the video. So one of my first honorable mentions is Nightmare on Elm Street. Of course, has to be the original one. Of course, Robert Englund, the infamous Robert Englund, who basically brought Freddy Krueger to life. And of course, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. Not to mention that this was Johnny Depp's first introduction into the movie genre, or into horror. Before that, he was in 21 Jump Street. Yes, the TV show, not the movies, because a lot of people think that 21 Jump Street, you know, began as a film franchise when it originally began as a TV series. So this gave Johnny Depp his first taste of stardom, if I can put it in the best way. But it's iconic. Of course, the legendary Wes Craven, God rest his soul, who got inspiration from I think it was a report in Cambodia that a lot of people were dying, sleeping, like just randomly dying of sleep. So that gave inspiration for, of course, Freddy Krueger, and of course Heather Langenkamp betraying Nancy, another one of those iconic roles that it cannot be matched. Speaking of Johnny Depp, my next honorable mention, Sleepy Hollow. Of course, we also have Christina Ricci playing as Katrina Van Tassel, and of course, Christopher Walken playing the Headless Horseman. My God, I mean, if you think Christopher Walken's out there, this just goes over 1,000. I remember me being maybe 10, 11 years old, wanting to watch this movie, but it would always come out on a Sunday. And of course, Monday I had to go to school, and I would always beg my mom to let me stay up late to watch this movie. And one day, she's like, okay, you can stay up late and watch the movie as long as you wake up to school with no complaints. So I did, and I finally was able to see the entire movie at the time. And of course, Tim Burton directing it, Johnny Depp. They're like a match made in heaven or hell, depending on the situation. But you know what? It's a good little movie to watch around Halloween time or any kind of time of the year. Next up, Silent Hill. Of course, everyone knows it by the game Silent Hill. But when a movie adaptation when the movie adaptation first came out, it got a lot of good reviews, because of course this was during the time that not many video games were becoming movie adaptations that will later, to today. We still have a lot of games like Assassin's Creed, Sonic, Mario have gone in their movie adaptations of video games. But Silent Hill was one of those ones that they kind of got inspired by the video game, but created their own little universe. I really didn't like the part two because it's really I can give a take about it, but the original Silent Hill, the story, of course, Pyramid Head. What more can I say about it? Next up we have Carrie, one of John Travolta's early movies, and of course you have the infamous Cece Spackett playing Carrie of this high school girl who is kind of an outsider, a bit shy, and has a really strict religious mother who says you're gonna go to hell and all that, and eventually begins to develop these kind of psychic powers, and of course her mother thinks that she's literally the devil incarnate, and of course does a lot of things to prevent her from going to hell, and of course the kids at school trying to bully her and give us the infamous blood prom scene that has been duplicated so many times but never quite has the same atmosphere from the original Carrie, to the point that I even, if I can pull it up here, have the Funko Pop of Carrie. Of course, it's not the blood edition. I wish I had it. I might get a blood cover just to see it at that, but I mean, come on, it's Carrie. What more can you expect? And the next three movies, you can kind of put them into one because they're kind of in the same sub-genre of psychological yet ritualistic kind of movies. Of course, I'm talking about, of course, Midsommar, the latest one in of Ari Aster's weird, fucked up mind that he has, and creates some of the most odd movies I've ever seen in a while, to the point that it makes you question your whole insanity. Of course, this one has shit, I'm forgetting her name. Florence Pugh, who eventually became out to be in the Black Widow movie as shit, I'm forgetting her name. I know this. Fuck. Yelena, as Yelena Bolova from, of course, Black Widow, and of course she's a great actress. And I actually fell in love with this movie and her performance at the very end. I mean, Ari Aster is one of those new directors of horror that whatever he does, you gotta watch it. And of course, talking about Ari Aster, we cannot talk about Hereditary, a movie that will fuck you up for life because, of course, of the scene with Charlie's head and accident. You know what I mean? But I remember watching this movie for the first time, and I was like, "What the fuck did I just watch?" To the point that I had to rewatch it. Of course, a lot of these Ari Aster movies, you gotta rewatch them a third, a fourth, and a fifth time to actually get the full meaning behind it. There's a lot of symbolism and a lot of, like I said, kind of ritual, kind of paganism to it, and that's what I like about Ari Aster. He brings paganism to horror, which not a lot of directors or modern day horror does well. And of course, the third one I have to talk about is The Witch. Of course, Anya Taylor-Joy, her, I guess one of her debut movies that actually put her as a genuine solidified actress. And my god, that movie, of course, the goat, the black goat, and of course talk about The Witch is around maybe the 1600s, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's around that era, 1600, around maybe around the time of the Salem witch trials, around there. But if you have not seen The Witch, I seriously recommend you all to see it, especially the ending scene of, her walking down the forest as the goat follows her to the, I guess, the cult of witches, and you see that ending, and my god, I mean, that's a great, great, great horror movie. So those are my honorable mentions, but now, let's get into the top 10. At number 10, 10, 10, 10, we have The Blair Witch Project. This movie came out in 1999, and it was a revolutionary movie at the time. Not many found footage movies were popular at the moment. Of course, previously we had movies like maybe Cannibal Holocaust, were kind of a bit documentary-esque found footage movie. Of course, they got a lot of controversy to the point that they even, I guess, for Cannibal Holocaust, for the director, even got almost arrested for it because they thought it was actually real. With the Blair Witch Project, the thing about the Blair Witch Project is that the actors and everybody involved took it literally. Like, for example, when the movie came out, the actors kind of stayed hidden for like almost like a year. People actually thought that this actually happened to the point that people were starting calling the police departments around the Blair Witch, around the area of the Blair Witch Project and where it was filmed to actually go into the forest and find them. A lot of people thought that was actually happening in real life, and of course they found out that it didn't happen. But the marketing of this movie was just out of this world, to the point that it has been duplicated so many times, like movies like The Wreck, or the American version of Wreck, which is Quarantine, or a movie like The Hangman, or so on and so forth. But Blair Witch Project is probably the best found footage horror movie of all time. At number 9, we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2003 remake. I do love the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre to death, no pun intended. But in terms of gruesome brutality and just fucked upness, I gotta give it to the remake, because this remake is probably one of the best remakes we've ever had in horror. And that says a lot, trust me. But of course, it takes a whole spin on the missiles of Leatherface, and that kind of making it like a based on a true story, even though it was based on true events by, of course, the infamous serial killer Ed Gein. But again, if you're looking for a gruesome ass psychological fucked up remake horror movie, the 2002 Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of them, and I seriously recommend y'all to watch it. I remember watching it when I was like maybe 12 years old, and it scared the shit out of me. At number 8, we have The Evil Dead. The original Evil Dead. Of course, this one's Sam Raimi's I think the first Sam Raimi movie he ever directed. And of course, he will later on to direct the original Spider-Man trilogy and the upcoming Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And of course, you have Bruce Campbell, and the makeup effects in this movie. I forgot to mention this. A lot of these movies, these old like 80s, 70s movies, the makeup effects were, actually they took the time to sit down, put on the makeup, and actually make them legitimately scary. Unlike some, today we have with CGI and 3D effects, which at times it does work, but not all the case. But of course, The Evil Dead, Bruce Campbell's leading groundbreaking role. It was kind of, for us, it was considered a B movie because it was like under $375,000, which wasn't at the time. It seemed like a lot, but compared to other big blockbusters of the time, it wasn't really that great, and it made a lot of money when it came out. Of course, you have the Join Us infamous, and of course Bruce Campbell, which will later adapt to, of course, Part 2, and of course, The Army of Darkness, and the TV series, and so many video games, and the remake, which is another remake that I do recommend y'all to watch if you like more goriness in horror movie. Or not to mention, Cabin in the Woods kind of got inspired by The Evil Dead. Seriously recommended. At number 7, we have Saw. At the time, Saw was a movie that, again, it revolutionized horror, because what Saw did, a lot of horror movies nobody thought about doing, about this guy creating different ways in putting people in situations to survive or eventually get killed. Of course, we all know the infamous bathroom scene where, I'm trying to remember their names, but of course the characters, Dr. Gordon and Adam, are in the room, chained up in their feet. Of course, they gotta figure out how to get out, and the only way to get out is to saw their foot out, which eventually does happen, which is one of the most iconic scenes in the maybe 2000s era of horror. James Wan is one of those masters of horror that doesn't get a lot of respect, and he will later go on to make movies like The Deadly Silence, which is not a great movie to watch, but the first Saw, it just brings everything together. Like I said, a lot of gruesomeness. Not really. There is blood, but not as much blood as later, like maybe a Saw 6, or the final chapter, or the new movie, the Book of Eli. Is it the Book of Eli? The new Jigsaw movie that's out, and potentially we might get a TV series. That's what I've been hearing, but we'll have to see. So now we're up to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now at number 6, we have The Silence of the Lambs. Of course, Anthony Hopkins' masterful role as Hannibal Lecter, Jodie Foster, of course, Scott Glenn as Buffalo Bill, of course, the infamous Goodbye Roses scene, which has horrified so many people that I've known of, that I know have like scarred them for life because of that scene. But not only that, I mean, the book, I've read the book, and it's a great book to listen to. And of course, we later get on, the Hannibal sequel, and the Red Dragon and Hannibal Rising prequels. But The Silence of the Lambs has this atmosphere of psychological horror movie that not a lot of horror movies have done fairly well. Of course, this one won the Academy Award in 1991 for Best Picture. For good reason. I mean, come on, it's one of the best horror flicks of the 90s. Now, to the top 5. At number 5, and this movie gave me chills. It disturbed me so much that it took me a while to actually go back to and rewatch it and enjoy it. An American Werewolf in London. Of course, John Landis directing the movie, who at the time was mostly known for a kind of a B movie director, kind of comedian director, and when he wanted to do American Werewolf in London, people thought a comedian actor directing a kind of esque horror film, it wouldn't work. Well, it did work, and of course, you have the infamous transformation scene where David Nongtam's character turns into the werewolf, and that scene disturbed me so much. Not just because the visuals of him transforming into the werewolf, it made him look so real and so painful. And kudos to also, I forgot to mention Rick Baker, who is the master of makeup effects in horror, trying to get the perfect angle for, of course, David's character to evolve into the werewolf and made him look so painfully disturbing. Of course, I'm talking about from his hands to the nails coming out of his fingers to the hair popping out to his spine, turning into a wolf, to even the eyes and the mouth, the face transformation when it just pops out and it starts to change to the howling of the werewolf. That it disturbed me for a long time, to the point that, like I said, I didn't watch this movie for a while until later on I got to appreciate what it would later be. And of course, we got the kind of sequel, American Werewolf in Paris, which I could live or take. At number 4, we have Child's Play 2. As you can see, I got my Chucky shirt right here. Chucky is probably my favorite slasher of all time, next to probably like Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jason, so on and so forth. The thing I like about Child's Play 2 is that in this movie, Chucky gets so creative in killing people. From the moment the movie starts, I mean, of course, we have Chucky killing the teacher with the fucking ruler, which I think that was fucking brutal. Not to mention the one-liners, of course, when he killed the stepfather in his house at Hanging Tom. My God, it's one of those classic moments in horror. And also even the factory scenes, I thought they were pretty enjoyable. The chase scene where Chucky's chasing Andy and Kyle, and when Chucky's hand gets stuck around maybe one of the doors in the factory, and he starts to rip his hand from it, and then puts on the knife to make it a replacement hand, which made it look so painful. And I gotta say, Brad Dourif as Chucky, like I said, next to probably someone like Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, best, probably their most fitting role. And it's probably my favorite Chucky movie of all time. I simply recommend y'all to watch the Chucky series, and for that you have to watch every single Chucky movie. Yes, I'm even also saying you have to watch Seed of Chucky, which a lot of people don't like it, especially including me. I really don't like Seed of Chucky, but you need to watch it to kind of get the full story. And I'll give Mark Hamill credit for the remake, which I did enjoy because it was a different version of Chucky. But again, it's not Brad Dourif as Chucky. For me, Brad Dourif is Chucky. Mark Hamill will always be Luke Skywalker, who will always be the Joker. At number 3, we have The Shining. Here's Johnny. Of course, Jack Nicholson betraying Jack Torrance. You have also Shelby Duvall portraying Wendy. And of course, you have Danny Lloyd as Danny. And of course, this is one of the best psychological horror movies of all time that even Stephen King, when this movie came out, he didn't like the movie, which I don't know why he didn't like it, to the point that he will later on direct, or it was more a part of including in the creative as creator later. He's a better version of, in his eyes, of The Shining, but everyone agrees that this is probably the best adaptation of The Shining. Stanley Kubrick is a master of psychological horror, from the themes to all that, to the isolation, to the ballroom scene where Jack is talking to the Mr. Brady and telling him that you were the caretaker, and it starts to fuck up with his mind. To the cook talking to Danny about what The Shining means. And also, if you haven't seen Doctor Sleep, I seriously recommend that I watch it because it is a direct sequel to The Shining. At number 2, Halloween, the original. What more can I say about this that hasn't been said already? Of course, you got Donald Pleasence as, of course, Dr. Loomis. You have also Jamie Lee Curtis in her lead-breaking role as an actress. Of course, the Scream of Horror herself. Michael Myers. That's it alone. Michael Myers. The most iconic, probably one of the most iconic figures in horror. And every single Halloween, every single spooky month, this movie is probably in every single top 10 horror movie that there is to date. Of course, today we will get on Halloween 2, the Season of the Witch, Michael Myers Returns, The Revenge, The Curse, the original 6 movies, and then we'll get on the spin-offs of H2O, Resurrection, and of course then we got the Rob Zombie remix, which again, we're kind of gory but good at times. And then we got this new timeline with, of course, Halloween Kills, and then next year Halloween Ends, but nothing comes close to the original. If you have not seen this movie, you're not considering yourself a horror fan, because this is a must. At number 1, my number 1, for a long time I said this is probably one of the best horror movies of all time, and it's gone so high to the point that, it's unbeatable, to the point that even people, when this movie came out, people starting to actually faint in front of the screen. I'm talking about The Exorcist. The Exorcist is one of those movies that at the time the makeup effects were really, 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 really good at the time. Of course, I'm talking about the Exorcist scene where, of course, we got Father Karras and I'm forgetting the other priest's name, being there in the scene with Reagan and doing the Exorcist, and of course from her levitating to the bed, levitating to the makeup effects, to the voice, to everything about this movie. Psychological, thrilling, suspenseful, everything one in horror, you got it right here. And of course we'll later get on the Exorcist 2, Exorcist 3, Dominion, and Exorcist the Beginning, which they're okay movies, but nothing comes close to The Exorcist. And I remember one of my aunts telling me that when she and my mom saw The Exorcist, a lot of people were fed in the movies because it was a really, really gruesome, really, really hard movie to watch, because at the time nothing was as impactful as The Exorcist. So that's why The Exorcist is my favorite horror movie of all time. And that does it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know there's a lot of horror movies I didn't mention. Of course, I didn't mention the first Friday the 13th. Of course, I didn't mention something like Psycho, or something like It, or something like, The Bride of Chucky, or, there's so much in horror, or not to mention The Human Centipede, but there's so much in horror that there's no right or wrong answer. It's everyone's perspective and everyone's point of view. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for all more coming videos, because I have a lot of ideas I want to bring you all guys, and I hope you all stay for the ride. But until then, stay metal.